Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to A-Tai Teaches Piano. So far in this series, we've gone over many basics that you need to learn to start the piano. And so far we've covered how to read sheet music, beginning method books, Bartok Mikrokosmos, posture, hand positions, basic theory of scales, arpeggios, and also how to play them. And now that we have all these basics lined up, an important aspect of the piano is obviously practicing, right? So although in the future I'll be doing a separate video specifically on practicing techniques and how to efficiently practice, today's video will be a kind of a summary of everything that we've gone over so far, put into the form of a beginner piano practice routine. So after this week, we'll kind of be moving forward. We'll be starting to study beginner pieces together, analyzing them, learning how to practice them, etc., so that you can start adding all these pieces to your repertoire. So if you're relatively new to piano, I would say that, excuse me, that practicing for 30 minutes at one time should be kind of like the limit, and anything more than this, you start to lose productivity, or your focus starts to drift away, and your posture and technique might just start to slip. It's always good to just take a break, right? Almost if you were studying for one of your exams or tests in school. And so within these 30 minutes, developing kind of a structure will help you to have a clear goal of what you need to accomplish. So first, what I would do is I would start off with some technique exercises, maybe for about 10 minutes. And so depending what level you're at, this can mean several things. So the most basic thing is 5-finger patterns, right? So if we take a look, I'll just move to this camera for now. Okay, right? So if you're just starting the piano and we've had some 5-finger patterns that we've learned, right, is where our right hand and our left hand go into a certain position, for example, C position, and we would work on going up and down our 5-finger position, then working on skips to outline our chord, and then we would play the chord, right? And so that's, for example, our 5-finger pattern. I believe we covered that a little bit in the last video of technique, right? So, and then if you're at this level, then we could do this in all the positions, right? So we would go to G position. So remember, your thumb when G position on your right hand is always on the note G. Your left hand pinky is always on the note G when in whatever position you're in. So if it's G position, you're in G here. If you're in D position, your thumb will be on D, your left hand will be on D, etc. So let's, for example, try another one on G. So here, going up all 5, skipping. So a really good thing about these 5-finger positions is that they're used in a lot of our pieces. So you'll see often these 5-finger positions all throughout the repertoire that we start to study. Also, it's a very, very easy and simple. You don't have to go anywhere. So you can really focus on that finger technique that we talked about, right? Keeping our fingers curved at this joint over here, or if you're looking up here, keeping this finger bent over here, so that when we play faster and scales and all that stuff, we're able to have the dexterity that we need. You can also work on over here, if you're looking at the big camera, right, our posture, sitting up straight, legs on the ground to give you the support, your forearms to be relatively parallel, and yeah, so that's what we would do, right? So 5-finger patterns is pretty important if you're starting out. Helps you to be able to really just think about all of the simple hand position and technique stuff that we've been talking about. Right, so this is on D position. We outline the chord with our skips, and then we block the chord. Okay, so if you're at that stage, I would start with 5-finger patterns. If you're a little bit farther than that, then last week we also learned about scales and arpeggios, right? So since we're using this week as kind of a review, let's go over that again. So if we create our scale, let's go do a basic one that I guess most people would start on, is C major scale. Hey, what's up everybody on Twitch joining in, starting our music lesson. Okay, so I'm gonna leave them as half notes because I'm too lazy to color them all in, right? But if we were to have our scale, right, we would have, starting on C, we would go up the scale, every note, blah 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 blah. Let me draw this really quickly. Okay, and then to review our scale fingering that we went for most of our scales, is that we had this combination on our right hand of 1 2 3, 1 2 3 4 5, and then in the left hand, if we had something similar, we started on C over here, we went up to D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and then here with the left hand we would have 1 2 3 4 5, 3, 2, 1. So sometimes if you're learning scales and you're pretty new to scales, having a scale sheet in front of you would be helpful to help you memorize the fingering. I know some students like to have scale sheets and some students don't, and they rather just memorize it. But if we're new to scales, let's go over it again. So taking a look at the right hand on this line up here, this scale fingering is the one that we follow with the right hand. So keeping our technique, right, we would go 1, 2, 3. We would slide over our thumb under to hit up the F, going all the way up to C for our 1 octave scale. Going down, we would just follow it going down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Third finger, 3, 2, 1. We're going to go over it a little bit faster since in the basic technique video we already went through all of this. But over here, if you're looking, right, you want to go 1, 2, 3. You're going to use your forearm and wrist to kind of help your thumb get that thumb under. Sorry, this camera keeps changing. So we go 1, 2, 3. Use your wrist and forearm to help you get under with the thumb and helping us get to the C. Okay, and then you would practice it with the left hand if this is where you're at in your piano career. 1, and then crossover. 3, 2, 1, and then you would go down. Thumb under. Same concept with the left hand with the thumb under, using your forearm and wrist to help you get under to reach there. Okay, and then after that we would put it both hands together, and so we had several ways of practicing this hands together. If you're already comfortable with it, right, you would just go 1, 2, 3. You would just go up the scale, and you would finish the 1 octave. If you're not too comfortable playing hands together yet, we had the recommendation of stopping every single time our hand had a position change. So I'm gonna make this red. So for example, our first position change is with our right hand when your thumb goes to F. And so practicing this transition helps you so that you memorize the fingering, right? So here I would stop on F because that's the first time our right hand moves. So stopping on F, then moving to the next hand position change, which is the left hand, moving on to A. So that's over here. And then we can finish our scale. And then going down, we're gonna stop again when we have the position change to make sure we get all the right fingering. Keep going, position change, and then finishing it to the bottom. So practicing your scales in the beginning looks like this. We're doing 1 octave. Great. And then if you're moving along greatly, we also added a 2nd octave, right? And so in the 2nd octave, we removed this 5th finger on C, and we are able to put our thumb so that we can repeat the octave. So if you follow along in the camera, you go follow the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then instead of using our pinky on C, we're gonna use our thumb, using the wrist and the forearm to help you get your thumb under, so we can reset our fingering for the next octave. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then going down would be the same thing. Ending on C, then your 4th finger crossing all the way over onto B, catching that, so it's the same fingering going down. So here, when we added both hands together on the 2 octave scales, just like in the basic technique video, instead of stopping here, we wanted to stop on C, so that both hands are with our thumbs on C. It's a good checkpoint. And then your left hand would come over onto D, getting ready for the 2nd octave. Stopping on C as our checkpoint, crossing over with your right hand. Great, right? And that's the general fingering for a lot of our major scales. And so if you're just starting out, I'd really recommend practicing some of these just in order to get some coordination. And today we just used the example of C major, right? But if you're practicing all these scales, you're going to want to make sure that you hit all the other scales, right? Maybe moving along the circle of fifths like we learned in our theory video, right? Maybe learning the C scale, then the G scale, adding 1 sharp, which is F sharp, and then maybe the D scale another week, and then just keeping adding on different scales, just so we're not staying in the same position the whole time. Cool, so that's the scales, right? So here I would recommend practicing maybe scales, whether it's 5-finger pattern scales or arpeggios, for about 10 minutes. Okay, let's go over the arpeggios really quick, and then we'll get into the next book, the next section. Okay, so if we were to do arpeggios, let's also do it in C major just to keep it simple. So in C major, we remember that arpeggios are an outline of our chord, right? So our C major chord we established last week was C, E, G. And then to complete the arpeggio, we would go back to the top C. And since it's short, let's do 2 octave arpeggios. E, G, and then C. Cool. All right, and so the fingering for this one, right, we did 1, 2, 3, and then again 1, 2, 3, 5. And then the left hand, so lazy to draw this. E, G, C, E, G, C. Sorry guys, it's very ugly. And then we're gonna go 5, 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1. And for the left hand fingering, we established last week that 5, 4, 2, 1 is kind of the traditional fingering that people used. I know some people are like to do 5, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, but it's honestly up to you. My hand's a little bit on the smaller side, so I stick with the traditional 5, 4, 2. And you can kind of do whatever floats your boat there. So the same thing when it comes to these scales, right? If this is the fingering, arpeggios, especially since we're skipping notes, we have a lot farther distance to cover with our hands, right? So here especially, you're going to want to use your forearm and wrist to get us up to the next positions. Let's move this again. So doing that one more time. So using the forearm and wrist to help us get to the next position. But we also talked about including some of our body, right? Moving our torso to the right as well, following our hand to keep us a little bit centered and to make it a little bit easier to reach all these notes, right? So piano cannot just come from the fingers, it needs to come from our whole body working in coordination. Okay, so the same thing applies to the left hand. So if you were to practice together, maybe you can put the left hand octave lower here, or you can put it right next to it. Really doesn't matter. So then we're gonna go here. I'll do it down here just so it looks like what you see on the sheet. Okay, so we're gonna go. And then here, I would stop on C's again, and then get your left hand over to find the next position. Thumb under on your left hand to C, back to C, and then right hand over. Sorry, I messed up the fingering there. So if we were to do it all together. Okay, and then if we view it over here, so without the fingering, so here you can watch as my wrist, arm, and body is helping me to move along as I go up the keyboard. So that'll help you get some nice movement, some flexibility in your wrist, and also getting your fingers really working. Cool. So yeah, so I would practice these scales, arpeggios, and even some chords for about 10 minutes if you're starting your practice routine. Right, and make sure that you don't do the same scales every day or every week, and that you're able to go at your own pace, but moving on to the next major scales, eventually working through all 12 of them. Cool. So that's that one. So that's so if we said that we broke our practice session down into 30 minutes, that would be about 10 minutes. So now we would move into our method book that you're working through, whether that's Alfred or Faber, or in this situation, we used Bartok's Mikrokosmos here on stream. So I believe in episode 1, part 2, if you're following along, we covered Mikrokosmos and we left off around exercise 17. So let's check that out again. Excuse me. And then we will get into some of this. So after 10 minutes, I would spend maybe the next 10 or 20 minutes, depending on how many pieces or workbooks that you're working through. All right, so here we go. So we left off at 17, right? And so over here at 17, let's see if we can zoom this out a little bit. Thank you for the follow. Oh, I see. Let's see. So, oh, here we go. Okay, cool. So we left off at 17, right? And we talked about a few things. So when we started, let's erase some of this. We wanted to look at the direction, or first we always want to look at the beginning of the piece, right? And seeing if we have any sharps or flats in our key signature. In this case, we do not. We also want to see what time signature we're at, which we're at 3/4, which means that we have 3 quarter notes, and 3 quarter notes, and the quarter note gets the beat of the measure. Okay, and then next we're going to want to find our starting position. So at this point, if you're still a beginner or starting to learn piano, I would still practice your pieces hands separately in the beginning, just so you're able to make sure we get all the right notes and all the right rhythms, right? So if we find our note, we have middle C here, and then this finger number 1 will give you the right starting spot. So starting on C, and then we just watch our directions. So if we're still getting used to reading, right, there's 2 ways that we learn how to read. One, we can read just the individual notes. So I'm going to memorize that that's C, I'm going to memorize that that's D, I'm going to memorize that that's E, etc. Or you can use directional and intervallic reading in order to help us read a little bit faster, right? So if I know that this is starting C, I see that this note is on a line, I go up to the next space, up to the next line, up to the next space, up to the next line. I know that I just have 5 steps here from C, D, E, F, G. So if my starting position is this C, I know that I'm just going to step up once, step up twice, step up 3 times, step up 4 times to lead me right to this G. Right, so either way, eventually you're going to learn how to read every single note, but I think this intervallic and this stepwise approach of reading really helps it to make it a little bit less intimidating for people. Okay, so if we were to read this with your right hand, we went over this last time, so let's just go over it really quickly. So I'm going to play it with your right hand. You're going to go measure 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, rest. We had our hand position change over here in measure 5, moving your thumb to G. 1, 2, 1, 2, rest. Onto the second line, 1, 2, rest. Hand position change. 1, 2, rest. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Cool, right? And so that was the right hand that we went over last time. The left hand, you would do the same thing, where you would find the starting note, which is letter C. You put your left hand thumb, because that's our indication right there, finger number 1, and then you would read the same thing, right? So this is intervallic reading, right? Moving stepwise down, just like the right hand. We talked about contrary motion and how they're moving in opposite directions, and then we also had a little sharp over here that we learned over here on the left hand. So let's go over this one together. I'm gonna play straight through it since we went through this, and then we'll kind of get to some of the next exercises. And then watch out if you're following along on the second line that we have hand position changes as well with on both hands. Cool, so let's start right from the beginning. Starting with both fingers, both thumbs on C, and we'll go through it. 1, 2, ready, and watch out for the sharp. 1, 2, 1, 2, rest, hand position change. 1, 2, 1, 2, rest, stay here. 1, 2, right hand switches. 1, 2, rest, left hand switches. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, rest. There we go. Okay, so that's exercise 17. And let's take a look at a couple more. So these we'll go through a little bit faster. So number 18 is going over 4 unison melodies. So unison, we're pretty used to unison at this point, so I'm going to have this treat as like a sight read for you guys, almost kind of like a quiz, right? So if you want to play along with me, you can. But so, like always, we're going to find the starting notes, letter A with our 5th finger on the right hand. We're going to go letter A with our thumb on the left hand. Okay, and since this is unison, we learned that that means that the right hand and left hand are playing the exact same thing. So just follow along with the rhythm, and then let's play through this together from beginning to the end. Since this is, like I said, unison, we'll go through this right away, and we should be able to read and play right through this one. Cool, let's do it. Let's see, what's our tempo? Okay, and then we also talked about using a metronome, so how about we set a metronome? If you can't follow along with the metronome, no problem. Maybe just pause it or choose a metronome speed that you are comfortable with. Let's just go with 90. This is Bartok's Mikrokosmos. Someone in chat is asking what method book we are using. This is book 1, lesson or exercise 18. Okay, so this is at 90 beats per minute if you're following along at home. Okay, and let's read through this one right away. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, How'd you do? You guys were able to follow along okay? I think this one should have been pretty easy, right? We've gone over a lot of complicated stuff like parallel motion, change of positions, contrary motion. This one was just a 4-note unison melody, or 4 unison melodies. So this one was that one. Let's do one more. Let's do number 19, and then we'll go on to something a little bit more difficult. Okay, so here we have a slightly different position, right, where our hands are a little bit farther apart. So if you're to follow along, your right hand is letter D. Okay, and then also left hand is going to be on letter D. And one thing that we talked about last week, just in case if you forgot, is how do we know which D on the piano to play, right? I find that a lot of my students, they know that the letter is D, and they often choose the wrong D, right? So the one good thing that you can use is using our home note, middle C, right? No one's ever going to forget middle C. And if we see that this note is letter D, but we see how many notes in between this D and this middle C is, we know that it can't be this D right above it, but it has to be at least 1 octave up, right? So I would use that middle C as a kind of a guideline to know which C and which octave to play. So like I said, let's do this one a little bit faster as well. Starting on D, I don't think there are any hand position changes, and this is all just unison. So our left hand and right hand is playing the same exact thing. So let's go do this. Alright, let's set the metronome. Yeah, we'll just stick with 90 for today. No need to go too crazy. And then, yeah, let's do it. So 1, 2, ready, and. Second line, skip, 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 2, 2, 3, 4. All right, and how'd you do on that one? Right, so I called out some of those skips there. I don't think our last piece had any skips. There was some leaps there, but this one was a little bit trickier with some of those skips. So make sure you watch out for those as you're playing. All right, and then yeah, so make sure you keep working through your method book, whether you're working through Bartok, Mikrokosmos, or Alfred, or Faber, whatever you're working on. Very important that you use a metronome and that you're very methodical about going through each of these exercises, right? To making sure you're starting in the right position, even doing some right hand first, left hand second, and then putting it together, all of that kind of good stuff there. So let's go over a couple exercises. So we're talking about, this video is all about developing a beginner practice routine, right? So we did 10 minutes on technique of scales or arpeggios or chords, and then I would spend the last 10, 15 to 20 minutes here on this Bartok Mikrokosmos. And then in the future, if you have actual pieces, then I would use those as well to add. So I would maybe use these kind of Bartok Mikrokosmos or any of your method book stuff as kind of sight reading practice, right? Some of this can be kind of simple, and sight reading is always good to make sure you're reading through things once, getting used to learning how to intervallically read and read the individual notes. And then once you have that repertoire added, then you can add repertoire at the end. Okay, good. So let's go over, I wanted to go over a couple ones. So let's find, this one's number 22. Okay, so I wanted to go over number 22 because there's, oops. Cool, so the concept of, why is this not working? Sorry, guys. Okay. Alright, that's fine if it cuts off a little bit. Alright, so looking at 22, we always said that we wanted to look at the beginning of the piece before we start. And why this is important, especially for number 22, is that this is the first time that we've seen together where we have a treble clef on the left-hand part, right? So over here, we're used to having treble clef, bass clef. Here, the first time we encounter treble clef, treble clef. So don't panic, right? There's nothing too scary about it, right? But here we're just gonna read it as if it was the right hand, and we're just gonna put it on our left hand, right? So here's a nice note to anchor us where we have middle C, and all you're gonna do is put your left hand on this B right below the middle C, and you just read it as normal. Okay, and then right hand is also just on treble clef, 4/4, so 4 quarter notes per measure, and there's no sharps or note and no flats in the key signature. And so you can see in this book, this is exercise 22, where things start to get a little bit more complicated, where we're going to have different parts on both hands, right? And also different rhythms on both hands. So here, I really like this Bartok Mikrokosmos because it goes very slowly, and slowly adds different rhythms and all that together, whereas some method books kind of jump around too much. But yeah, so if we take a look at this one, right, this is very important where you would read through the right hand. So the right hand rhythm, let's take it together right here from the beginning. So we're going to move faster through this as you guys are getting better. Okay, so our right hand starting on G. Okay, and so we're starting on G on a half note. So let's read through this line. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tied. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rest. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tied. 2, 3, 4. Right? So if you look at that, that was a little fast for you. Feel free to take it a little bit slower. But you would notice when playing through that there are really no skips in this whole piece. Right, and so Bartok introduces this new concept of the left hand and right hand playing quite different notes and different rhythms, but he also keeps in mind that this is a complicated thing, right? So he doesn't add any skips, so that's one thing you can remove off your brain. And so as you practice the left hand, we get the left hand comfortable, and then when you put it together, you can really make sure you're focusing on the rhythm and the notes rather than thinking about skips and all that stuff. And later on, then he'll add skips and hand position changes and all that stuff. Okay, so let's take a look at the left hand, so making sure we're doing it at the right time. So if you follow along with my right hand here at the camera, feel free, and just don't get tripped up that this on the left hand is treble clef, okay guys, not bass clef. Alright, so let's go do this one. So starting on B, so 1, 2, ready, and B, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, still no skips, all steps. 2, 3, 4, tied, 2, 3, 4, tied, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, rest. Rest, we should be on F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, rest. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, tied, 2, 3, 4. Cool, right? And so after you guys memorize those and get really comfortable with moving up steps and skips, or sorry, just steps up and down with your right hand, left hand, then I would work on putting it together. Okay, so feel free to go a little bit slow so that you're able to catch all of this stuff, because now we have different rhythms and different notes. Okay, so let's go at it. Starting from the beginning, and let's see if we can follow along. So this is our hand position over here, and then we start with the left hand. So ready, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Thumb on the right hand here. 1, 2. Right hand's going up, left hand's going down. 1, 2. Both going down. 2. Opposite direction. 2, 3, 4. Tied with the right hand. 2, 1, 2. Now left hand's moving. 1, 2, 1, 2. Rest with the left hand. To opposite direction again. Rest with the right hand. Rest with the left hand. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, good. Yeah, so I might have lost some beats or gone faster through some beats. I wasn't playing with the metronome that time because I wanted to make sure I can call out and take a little bit of time just to call out some of these things, right? So I think the hard part about this is that our hands are finally doing independent things, and that's what a lot of people are scared of when playing the piano. So yeah, I think it's just important to take it slow, right? Watch which direction that you're going in and really trusting the direction. Since you can tell in your brain that you don't have any skips, right? If you see a direction change going up, you can really just trust that your left hand over here, right, starting on C, okay, I'm going up 1, 2, 3 notes. I'm just gonna trust that I know how to go up 3 steps, right? And that's where that intervallic reading comes in. because it is a little bit more confusing to read G, E, A, D, B, C, C, B, D, E, right? There's a lot of things going on. All right, so if you just read, okay, I see this is going up, I see this is going down, that's also another way to read it. Cool. So that's that one. Let's go over maybe one more. And so I would really recommend, if you're starting out, to get through at least this book 1 of Bartok Mikrokosmos. So this Mikrokosmos is in 6 books. So book number 1 is lessons or exercises 1 through 36. So I'd really recommend that you try and get through all these 36, making sure you're pretty confident with each of them. I think they go at a really good pace, and I think by the end of 36 you should be able to start some of our pieces like we will next week. So let's go over one of them together. Right, so of course, just recapping, right, you're gonna spend 10 minutes on your scales, arpeggios, and chords or whatever, and you can spend the last 15 to 20 minutes on your Mikrokosmos. And then once we add the repertoire, right, maybe some of our individual pieces, then that's something you can add to your practice as well. Okay, so always having kind of a plan when you practice is an important concept here. Cool, so which one did I want to go over? Let's see, let's choose and so if you're curious, he goes through these books and he kind of just labels all the kind of ideas, like in Dorian modes, like some music theory in there, and he talks about a bunch of other stuff here. Let's just go with this one, number 31, and then we'll call it for today. Okay, so 31 is a good one, right? It just starts in C position, starts in C major, so no sharps, no flats, but we also have a position change down here, which is good to practice. Okay, and then we also have different rhythms. So this is what we call a canon. So that means what the right hand plays is imitated by the left hand, but maybe a measure later, right? So if we take a look at the right hand, in these first two measures, right, we're starting on D, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. What you're gonna play in the left hand is kind of a copy of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And that's what we have the word canon. Kind of like if you think of row, row, row your boat. If you've ever sung it in a canon where one person would start and the next person would come in, it's kind of the same idea. So I think canons are really good to practice here because they have different rhythms on the left hand and right hand, and so it really keeps you sharp and following that direction. Okay, so if we take a look at the right hand, moving on to measure 3, skip or leap down, 1, 2, 1, rest. Leap up, accent, leap down, 1, 2, second line, right? We moved our hand over here to A in the second line. So switching position, 1, 2, 2, 2, rest, position change again, so third finger on 2, F in these last 4 measures, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, leap, 2, and then we would have a repeat sign here if you want to play the repeat. Okay, so that's what we have with the right hand. With the left hand, I would have you read the left hand again by yourself, and then you would try and play them all together. Okay, so I'd practice this one as a canon form. There's a lot of them, so let's try doing it one more time here. So we'll do it with both hands. Okay, we'll skip reading to the left hand, but I'm confident you guys are able to read through this left hand by yourself. Okay, so if we put it together, okay, watch out. Let's go. It's nice and slow. I'll talk through some of the things so that our rhythms are gonna change over here. So we want to make sure that when we get to the second measure, that we hold out this right hand as our left hand plays. When you get to this third measure, your left hand's gonna hold out as your right hand plays. Etc. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. 1, 2, ready, and left hand comes in, imitating the right hand. Hold the left hand, leap, rest, leap with the right hand, rest. Hand position change. Hand position change with the left hand. Left hand still copying the right hand. Position change. rest. Right, and that's how you do it. So the music's getting a little weird. Maybe that's why some people don't always recommend Bartok Mikrokosmos. It's also the only free one and like the public domain that I'm able to show on stream. So that's also why I do it. Okay, but I would make sure that you get through all 36 exercises at least in book 1 before moving on to some of our other pieces. Okay, and that will really be able to set you up with really good reading skills and the ability to tackle a lot of the pieces. Okay, so yeah, so this 30-minute rule is just a guideline, right? And obviously if you feel like keeping going, you should obviously keep going. In general, if you're going to practice like 2 hours a day, it's usually better to split up into like 2 hours into multiple sessions. So perhaps 2 30-minute sessions and 1 hour long session, or maybe just 4 half-hour sections kind of broken out throughout your day. This helps to keep your brain fresh, to keep your hands fresh, your body all in shape. And so I hope this simple practice routine helps you break it down into segments to help you achieve your goals. Right, so it's always pretty important that you want to have a goal. So if you're gonna go sit down and practice for 30 minutes, and you have 10 minutes to work on scales, right? Okay, I'm gonna work on C major scale for 10 minutes, and then I want to tackle maybe exercise 34 and 35, right? And so that should be your 2 goals. And setting those 2 goals help you really make sure you get those done, and it also helps you feel really accomplished that you finish those. But that's it for today. Thank you so much, everybody. If you're following along with the series so far, thank you so much for joining. I really do appreciate it. I hope your piano journey has been going well so far. Next week is where we finally start introducing piano repertoire together. So now that we've gone through kind of 1 through 36 of this Bartok Mikrokosmos, we can start learning some new pieces. And we'll tackle our first piece together. We'll start to analyze it, learn how to practice it, and yeah, we'll kind of move on from there. So thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.